Hello everybody. Evan Abrams back here with another creative challenge for you. Some more video stuff, some more logo animation today. We're going to be sticking almost entirely inside of After Effects. Actually, probably all inside of After Effects today, as we animate a logo in 3 different and distinct ways. Hopefully I'm going to be fast enough to get all 3 of them done in the time limit here. We'll see. But let me know if you have any questions about what you see, if you have any troubles. I want to help you out, so get at me in the chat. If you're over on YouTube, if you're over on Behance, who's hanging out on Behance? Penny Doodles, hello. Armad, Cody Bear, holding it down. Cynthia Ramos, hello. Clever Devlin, Marsha, hello. Oh, so many people hanging out with us. Oliver Andrews, what's up? So yeah, we're going to be animating logos today. And Umacorn, hey, there you are. We're going to be animating logos, the same logo you've seen previously, so we don't have much time. We must get to it. Let's jump into After Effects and make it happen. So let's get a little preview about what we're going to be seeing as we go through. I got 3 styles, like I said. Number 1, how about some brush stroke looking stuff? So here we go. We've got some brushes brushing our logo on. That's pretty good. That could be something that we want to do. And then let's see, maybe we want to use a totally different interpretation of the logo, and we'll do beep boop bop boop, something like this, where we got some flickering and some blinking. We can do something like that. What else can we do? Well, how about something that is maybe a little bit more manual and will make use of maybe a bit more of a cartoony squashing and stretching. So we're taking our logo, we're going to try to bend it in these 3 ways on these different interpretations of what the thing might be. Hopefully that'll be a good time. Just to back up a little bit where our journey should begin, if you're bringing in a logo, if you've got a logo to play with, if you're working with something, you want to make sure, generally, that your logo or whatever asset you are animating has been broken up into the constituent parts that you wish to move independently. I'm gonna hammer that home every time. I said it yesterday, I'm saying it again today. We are making sure that if I want this element to move independently from this element, I have them on different layers here in Illustrator. So always do this whenever you do that. So in this case, we got a top bar, we got the word hack, we've got the ampersand, we got the word slash, we've got the bottom bar. Now, I created this logo from scratch. You can probably kind of tell, but it gives us the things we need to work with. But just remember that if you have different parts of the logo or the asset or whatever that you want to move independently, or if you want them to move together and you know they're never going to separate or do anything unique from each other, leave them on the same layer and label those layers. Give them names. Give them names you will remember when you see them later, which you will when we open up After Effects. So we save that, we jump into After Effects, and I'll say this: if you want to play with these files, you want to get your hands on them, there are links to that in the descriptions, so you can go ahead and download those and enjoy them. Oh, well, thanks, Penny. I like it. I did it in a half an hour, so I feel like I gave it some attention. So with this, most of that was spent picking fonts. Which one to start with? I think let's start with the brushes. Let's talk about how this is put together, and we'll make it from scratch. If you were with us yesterday, pretty much everything that we did was layer based. So all we were doing were manipulating the properties of a layer, and you can see here in our properties window, properties of bottom bar, they have anchor points, positions, scales, rotations, and opacities. And if you twirl down into here, you'll see all of them again. We haven't set any keyframes on those for this particular example. This is all being done with a different system that can be used to impact our layers, and that is the track matte system, which allows one layer to observe another one and be visible or invisible depending on certain rules. So if we wanted to start this particular thing from scratch, from the very beginning, you want to double click in here, you want to grab your logo, you want to import that as a composition and retain layer sizes. When you do that, when you retain the layer sizes, you're going to end up with all of these little parts, and it will also create Actually, I might as well just do it. So we'll grab this. We can create another one. It's fine. So we're going to make sure we bring it as composition retain layer size. Hit open, and you can see that we have pulled in, another folder of layers, and we get a composition that is the same dimensions as the artboard from Illustrator. There's all of our layers. They got the same names. It's exactly where we want to see them. So hopefully that's going to be good. Oh no, and there's some flickering. Oh, I hope that's not on my end. Hold on, maybe I'll kind of move stuff around a little bit. Do let us know. Do let us know. So we've got our assets. We've brought them in. We're going to do something to them. And we need a little help. And in this case, hold on, I'm just going to make sure that there we go. So I'll get 3 of these to work from. We want to bring in some friends, right? We're going to bring in some friendly friends. What could be causing the flickering? I don't know. Always refresh the page. We'll see if that helps. Very perplexed. Anyway, I don't want to linger too much on the streaming stuff. Get my head back in the game. Okay, we're gonna bring in a couple of stock elements. These are from Adobe Stock. They are just some brushes. They are just some brushes being brushed on. Now, I believe these are being added digitally, but they still look pretty nice. They're getting it done. And this one, I needed maybe an alternative to that. So we've got multiple types of brush strokes to play with and make something from. I'm going to just go ahead and drag one of those down into the mix down here. I'm going to scale it down so we got to see it a bit better. And let's see, when does the brush stroke actually start happening? Which one am I interested in? I really only want to use one of these, and I think I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to try to find when that one kind of starts. Oh, it starts right here. So I'm going to grab that layer. I'm going to trim it down like that. And I could just take a little pen tool here, and we'll just mask maybe only that layer, or maybe I'll be able to find it easily enough. But something like this, we can just do a kind of a rough job of isolating that. It doesn't have to be precise, because the way we are going to make use of this is to position this sort of over top of that word hack is what we want to do. And I'm going to ask hack to look at that and use it as a track mat. So if you don't see your track mat layers down here, we want to come down to our toggle switches and modes and make sure that those track mats are there. Let's see. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to close down Illustrator. There we go. Hopefully the flickering resolves. It's very peculiar why that would be happening. Yeah. So how are we going to get this thing to affect that thing? We're going to use the track mats, and we are going to come down to hack, and we're going to say, hey, please use that particular layer as a track mat. Now, by default, it doesn't look like it's doing anything cool. Well, you need to change this. Right now, it's an alpha mat. We're going to click it and change it into a luma mat, which means it's going to use the black and white information, not the alpha information of that layer. And I'm going to invert it, which means it's going to do the opposite. The black areas are the thing that we're going to see. And I'll just kind of grab that footage element and maybe scale it up a little bit. So there we go. It is bringing that thing on like so. We can maybe angle it a little bit like that. We'll see how we like that. There we go. So we've got the word hack kind of showing up in that way, right? And I think what we want to do is really just duplicate that. And we're going to be rearranging and moving these things around. So I'm going to make sure that this is the hack mat. And I like to keep them together, even though we don't have to nest them on top of each other like this. It can be helpful to do so you don't get kind of confused about where the things are. But we'll make a few more of these. And in fact, I'm going to remove this mask from here, and I'm just going to sort of position the stuff. So let's see, here comes that third one. So it's going to start coming on like that, and I want to try to position that. I'm going to turn it around, get it over top of the word slash, and so we're going to have / look at that matte number 2, switch into Luma mode, switch into invert mode, and so now that one is showing up as well. Again, I'm going to try to align these layers to be together like that. I'll make sure they're kind of close together, and then we can figure out our timing, right? Wipe, wipe. And maybe we want to push them apart. Wipe, wipe, like that. So now we've got multiple things being wiped on, and we really just have to repeat that process for the rest of the layers. Push them around, using our mats to bring things on. You may wish to make these go faster or slower, in which case you can always right-click on a layer, come over to time, and you can enable time remapping, or just use time stretch. And time stretch will help us make things slower with a bigger number or faster with a smaller number. So if 100% speed, takes that much time, 50% speed, sorry, our stretch factor of 50 will actually make us shrinker. So it's going a lot faster there. Oh, and what does Luma stand for? Luma stands for luminance. So our luminance, how illuminated. If you think about the various channels, we're going to use words like chroma, or we're going to use words like luma. We're going to say alpha. These are the types of terms when we're talking about color, lightness, and then transparency are those types of sort of terms when we're discussing the luminance or luma of a given pixel is how close to pure black or pure white it is on that particular scale. Very helpful thing to to know. I need to be often reminded to not just throw my jargon around. Now, I think we've got the idea behind this. We're just pushing the things around. We're just getting the timing. So we must move on to move number 2, is we are actually going to make these flicker on, and then we're going to have them kind of jostle around in a kind of pixelated way. So first off, let's just make them flash onto the screen, right? And give you your warning now, if you are sensitive to flickering things, this is going to be some flickering. Although I guess my interface has been flickering this whole time, so it is there is that to contend with. Bad day to update my operating system, maybe. So I'm going to tap T for opacity or transparency, if you prefer, but the property is opacity, so I'm going to keep doing that. And what I'm going to do is scrub ahead a little bit, and I'm going to set the opacities here at 100%. I'm going to hit page up to move back a couple of frames, set it down to 0, move back a couple of frames, set them all back up to 100, and I'll just do that a couple more times. And let's see, bring that back down, bring that back up, and I don't think we really need to bring it back down. I'll actually just trim the layers there, which you can do by hitting leave it still, Option, and then square bracket. That'll bring that in. So they're going to show up, they're going to turn off, turn back on, but I don't want them to fade. I don't want that interpolation between. So I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say toggle hold keyframe. So now we are going showing up, going away, showing up, going away, showing up, just like that. And now maybe actually this bunches like that. So there we go. We've got a bunch of flickering happening. I think some of these I want to flicker a couple more times. So I think with the word hack, I'm going to select these 2 keyframes, move ahead a bit, and paste. So it actually flickers one more time. And I think slash will make that flicker maybe a couple more times for that one. And everything else I think is fine and good. So now we'll just arrange these. Let's have hack happen first, and I'm going to actually offset that a little bit. So it starts there, and then we'll have what I know will be our ampersand, and then our other elements. And now, here we go, kind of like that. And if this is as cyberpunky and glitchy as you want to do, you say, I'm done here, I've done it, I've nailed it, I've got the stuff showing up exactly the way I want, I can go make use of this in another way. So if I were to take this logo, I'm going to drag this composition into a new composition so it shows up kind of as footage. I'm going to make a new solid. We're going to make a kind of a darker solid put that behind. I'm going to take that logo and I'm going to apply a couple of effects. First off, fill, and then second off, a glow to that so that now it is glowing. Bzzzt, kind of looks like lights. And if you want kind of interesting choppy lines on it, I'm going to use Venetian blinds, do that before the glow. Set this to about, say, 50% and make the width something like 4, and then we get these kind of scan lines. Bzzzt, kind of like that. Let's change the color here. It's sort of like a matrixy type of green. There we go. Got that going on. I might duplicate the Venetian blinds, set it to go sideways, and change the width maybe down to 2, so we get these little uneven little rectangles. Now, that's pretty good. But you might say, Evan, that's okay. I need some glitching to be happening. I want some digital glitch stuff going on. How are we going to do that particularly well, right? Well, I prefer to make use of something called a displacement map. Now, the first thing to know about that is we must create a map. So I'm going to make a new solid in here, make it the comp size. Let's call it the map, exclamation point. And I'm going to start stacking a bunch of effects in here. And if you're not particularly familiar with a lot of the effect systems and how we combine things, this might feel a little bit rushed. Take it slow, and you want to kind of dial in each of these and really understand what each of them are bringing. So I'm going to start off with what we call the fractal noise. That's going to generate some lovely clouds, some procedural randomness for us. I'm going to come into the transform of that. I'm going to make it small, so it looks kind of more noisy like that. So this is our base level noise. I'm going to then bring into this what we call a mosaic. Now, a mosaic is taking that thing that I made, and then it's going to sort of average us into different squares. So a 10 by 10 grid in this case. And maybe I might play around with these numbers a little bit, but you can see that it's becoming pixelated at this point, right? But there are all these really distinct gray tones. So I might even add something called a posterize onto this and give it sort of a few different levels to work with, or maybe I'm going to make sure I have sharp colors checked on, which will make sure that it is making much bolder decisions about this type of thing. And let's see, what else do I want to do? Maybe I'm going to bring a transform on top of this, and I'm going to give it a skew. I'm going to change our skew angle so that it's kind of spread out a little bit like that. Let's start with this and see how this works as our map. So if we call this the map, let's put it below. And in sharp contrast to real maps, we actually don't want to look at it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, I'm going to go new, bring out an adjustment layer, and upon this adjustment layer I will put the displacement map effect. Now adjustment layers, make this orange, affect everything below them, so they're all going to get this treatment. You can see right away something is happening. I'm going to make sure that the map I'm looking at is actually the map, and I'm looking at the thing after effects have been applied. And I'm going to just increase our horizontal displacement here up to, say, 50, and our vertical displacement up to maybe 50. And you can see, look at this. We've already done a very good job of making this look kind of glitchy and strange. So if we come back into our map, what happens if we increase the number of lines of our mosaic, right? What happens if we take our fractal noise and we bring the contrast way down? It starts to come together, or it starts to break apart. So I think over time, we are going to warp our contrast. So the contrast is going to go from a pretty high number to eventually 0. Right? It's going to reach nothing like that. The other thing I want it to do is to evolve over time. And if we just come here and rack the evolution, you can see that that is shifting stuff around. So we're going to go ahead and set a keyframe for that to change quite a lot over time. So if we play that, that's looking pretty good, I think. I'm also going to deploy onto this something called a posterized time, which is going to bring down the number of frames per second of just this layer. So if we play this through, we're getting that kind of a deal where this is sort of resolving into this thing, right? So it's resolving down into a coherent type of object. And depending on how extreme you want to push this, maybe you want to work the mosaic to have a different number of blocks, or you might even animate that over time. So if you look at the original, right, it is altering quite a number of things. Definitely download the project file and dissect how that works. We have to move on because I've only got 5 minutes to do the last one. So I'm really going to try to burn through it. We are going to use an amount of squashing and stretching. This is the most manual of the pieces. So I'm going to use my little anchor point change here. I'm going to drag the anchor point down there. Let's make sure that these are fuchsia so you can really see kind of what's going on. And I'm going to just start animating them into place. So with this, I'm going to change the scale and rotation of it. So this is where I want it to end up eventually. Where I want it to start is actually very small. So I'm going to make it kind of tiny like this. And the rotation, I'm going to set a keyframe for that, because as it shows up, I want it to get way too big, and I want it to be up like this. I'm going to solo this so you can see how that's going to go. So it's going to go up, and then it's going to kind of clack down, and I want it to sort of bounce into place. So it's going to hit, and then maybe it's going to go maybe up by 5, and then back down to 0, and then it'll maybe go up by 3, and then back down to 0. And then it'll maybe go up to 1 and then back down to 0. And so if you were with me yesterday, you're going to know that we spent a lot of time in the graph editor. So I'm going to select all of these keyframes. You can right click on them, go to Keyframe Assistant, and go to Easy Ease, which will be very helpful. And that will make a much more eased type of deal. But now we need to really kind of spread these apart, and we want to play with their timing. So we are going to come into the graph editor, and right now we are observing a speed graph, but we can modify a, so this is our speed graph. We can modify the value graph if you'd prefer. So from the value graph, I'm going to stretch the influence handles like this. So it's really showing up. And I'm going to grab both of these at the same time so that I'm kind of working these handles together. And I'm going to pull at the top here to create a kind of plateau. So it's like we are hanging out, boom, and then hitting when it comes down. So this kind of stretching as it gets larger, it's like it's inflating, and then it's clomping back down, which I think is pretty cool. I'm going to just simply grab all those keyframes. Let's bring slash on so that we can see it also. And I'm just going to paste them to that, and we're going to see how that looks. I think I will simply have to move the anchor point on this. So tap Y, bring up the anchor point tool, click it there, and you can see that now they are clunking together like that. And so to keep kind of the vibe going with this, the little ampersand, right, when these two things clunk together, I want the speed of this to feel like it's throwing this into the mix. So we're going to eventually end up at this kind of position and scale. This is where that is going. So we're going to set keyframes for that. But where it's going to begin, I am actually going to squish it down kind of like that and pull it down here. So that's where it's going to start. And we want to kind of just guide it through the motion. So it's going to pop up a bit like this when it's getting launched. I want it to turn all the way over. So if we actually call up the rotation, let's go ahead and spin it a whole 360 degrees. Right? So it's going to spin all the way over. When it reaches sort of the apex here, this is where we are going to have it sort of begin its turning journey, if that makes sense. So it's going to come up and then kind of tumble into place. And I've run out of time, so I'm going to just really quickly, with the last few fleeting seconds that we have, make sure that we kind of play this through, and you can see that there is a lot of manual work it takes to make this type of thing. And you'll need to kind of craft it and push it. But I'm going to really encourage you to download the project files and give this a play and see if this is the type of thing that'd be interesting to you. This takes the most manual work. The other ones are much more procedural. So, you know, depending on where you want to go with that. Sorry about the screen flickering. I'm not totally sure what has been causing or doing that. Hopefully it's not too distracting to what we're getting into here. And hopefully it is still something that is legible and good to check out. Like I say, download those project files. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you can make something of them and dissect them. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me for this whole week. That's been a lot of fun. But stick around on Adobe Live. There are more things coming up on here. So stick around for a whole day of programming. And of course, the master classes tomorrow, all those great things that are going on. So always keep it here on Adobe Live. And you can find me on the internet at EC Abrams in all the places. But till then, stay creative, be kind to each other, and I'll see you all around the internet. Bye for now.